So welcome back to today's lesson. We're going to look at the difference between a while loop and a do while loop. So before we do that, we need to have. I think it will be best to look at that the difference between a while loop and a do while loop with an example. We're going to write a code using a while loop and then write another code using a do while loop, and then we are going to make our own observations. Then after that, we're going to come up with a summary of what we observed. Okay, let me have int count. Let me have int count. Okay, and set it to be zero. Right. Then I'm going to write a do while loop. I'm going to say do um cout hello. I'm going to say cout hello. And then I have the end line, right? And then after that, we're going to have we need to update count, right? So we're going to say count is equal to count count plus count is equal to count plus 1. So remember, when we say count equals to count plus 1, we're simply increasing count by 1. Yeah. And then now we have to write the condition here. So while, now let's let our condition to be while count, let's write a condition that is false. Let's say while count is greater than, in fact, while count is less than 0. Okay, let's say while count is less than 0. All right. And this is a complete code. We're going to run it and see if there are any errors. Then if there are errors, we're going to fix them. So this is a while, this is a code that uses a do while loop. So we're just going to bring the screen here so that we're going to see what's going to be the output. And let's see, we're getting an error. What is it about? Cout hello. Oh, so I used cout without using namespace, so I didn't use namespace up here. So I need to say using namespace std. So that's why I was getting that error, because if you don't have namespace, then you have to say std cout. So you see, let's look at this now. Let's say our count is equal to 0. Okay, our count is equal to 0. We set it to be 0, and here we say we want this loop to run while count is less than 0. 0 is not less than 0, but this program did run at least once. Okay, all right. So that's the first observation. That's what we see. Now we're to write this code using our while loop. Okay, we're not going to change anything. I'm just going to copy this condition, because this is how a while loop, the while loop, the condition is up there. So we're just going to remove the do, and then we put this. Once you do that, this is your while loop. It's a complete while loop. Okay, that's your while loop. That's just the difference. The condition is at the top. Now we're going to run the code and see if it will run. Yeah, so program did not output anything, meaning the while loop did not run. So the difference between a while loop and a do while loop is that a do while loop is going to run at least once, even if the condition is false, because the condition is checked after running the code. So we run the code, and then after running the code, we check the condition. Okay. While the while loop, we check the condition first. If the condition is not true, if this is not true, then we don't run the code. That's the difference between a while and a do while loop. So we said we use a do while loop where we know that we want that piece of code to run at least once. and we made an example with a menu. We say a menu, you want a menu to run at least once. A code that is going to display a menu, then it has to run at least once, because you want to display the options. And among those options, there's an exit option. So you can terminate and say exit, but we want it to run at least once. So we use it for such things. That's the difference between a while and that's the difference between a while and a do while loop. One, the first difference is that with a while, it has got the condition comes before the code, and it is checked before the code. While a do while loop, the condition is checked at the end after running the code. At the end after running the code, and a do while loop has a. We're sure that a do while loop is going to run at least once. It is going to run it at least once. A do while loop is going to run at least once, while a while loop has a possibility of not running at all. So whenever you have a do while, once you have a do while in your code, you know it's going to run at least once, but a while loop may not run at all. So we say this one is preconditioned, meaning the condition comes first. A while loop is preconditioned, while a do while loop is post-conditioned, meaning the condition comes after the code. Alright, that's the difference between a while and a do while loop. Hope you all get it. I don't know if there are questions. If there are no questions, are there any questions? So last if it delay, even if we have gone past this, you can ask the questions later. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, our aim is to make you to be the best in this course. So make sure that you ask. You don't miss anything. Make sure that you ask. Even if I ask you a question, you can ask me the same question that I asked you, because we want you to be the best in this course. Now, we're going to look at the while loop, right? The for loop. Okay, we talked about the while, we talked about the do while. Now we also talked about if else. We talked about switch statement. Now we're going to talk about a for loop, and because it's a bit interesting. It's a bit interesting, and we're going to use it a lot when we deal with okay, before we proceed, okay, let me read the question from that day, from that demo here. I'm trying to load the messages, and so that people who are joining from the library, and they will send messages, so that's okay as well. Okay, he wants to see the format of a condition part in the do while. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to go back to the code and edit the code to show you how it looks like. So you should remember that when you do a do while loop, you just remove this condition from here and you write do. So that's what it's going to do, and then you put the condition here. You put the condition down there, and then you terminate the line. So this is a do while loop. If I am going to copy this so that I have both while loop and a do while loop code at the same time on the screen. So I'm going to have, let me paste this one here. So this one is going to be a while loop, so you see the difference clearly. And then so there's a difference between this is a while loop code. Okay, so yes, there's a difference between a while. You see, while the condition is the condition, the body of the while with the do while the condition comes after. So that's the difference. And with the do while, we know it's going to be executed at least once. Why? Because remember, we said the program is executed from the top to the bottom. So this is how the code is going to be executed. We start from the line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5. We see out hello line 6, line 7, and then we update count. When we get here, that's when we have to check the condition. And if the condition is false, we no longer go back and start from here again. We just proceed. But with the while loop, when we get here, the condition is checked. If it is false, we skip line 12 and 13 and we go to the next thing that comes after the while. So that's the difference. The condition is checked first when we are dealing with a while, and then with a do while, the condition is checked after. I think that's pretty much clear. Um, and I addressed in that the demo best question, right? Now we're going to look at the for loop. We're going to look at a for loop. So for it has got quite a number of things. For int I equals to 0, can be equal to any number, and then you say less than I less than maybe 4, I less than 4, and then we're going to have increment I plus plus. So yeah, this is a for loop. So we're going to say see out. Let's say we want to see out. No way, I don't want to do that. Let's say we're going to have see out. Why is it doing that? We can have see out. Let's start with see outing hello. Okay, going to say hello. Could just say hello world. Okay, so and then we're going to have end line. Remember, the end line is just going to make the next output to be printed on the next line, so that the output doesn't be on the same line. Okay, we're going to run the code and see what's going to be the output, and then we're going to explain how a for loop works later on. So see, we have hello how many times? Hello 1, 2, 3, 4 times, right? We have hello 4 times. So let's discuss the different parts of a while loop. So you see here we have of a for loop. So you see here we are doing two things. Okay, we are declaring we are declaring a variable I, and then we are initializing it to be 0, and then we have a condition here. We have a boolean expression, which is a condition that we're checking as I less than that. And now, so that the loop doesn't run forever, we keep increasing 1. So at some point we keep increasing I. So we start with I being 0. Now this part here is executed once, so it's done once. This one in a for loop, it is done once. Then after this part, we set I to be 0. Then the compiler is going to check the condition here. Is I less than 4? If that's true, it gets in the for loop, it runs the code that is inside the for loop. Then when it gets to the bottom of the for loop, when there's no other line, it goes to increment. Okay, it increments I, meaning I now becomes 1, because we say I plus plus, so 0 plus 1, that's 1. And then it checks the condition. So then after checking the condition, if the condition is true, we go inside the for loop, we run it. Then after that we increment. Then after incrementing, we check the condition. So that's basically what we are doing. That's how a for loop works. I'm going to write a different code. I'm going to show you, we're going to print I instead, so that you see what I is. It's also going to help you understand what is happening. So instead of saying see out hello, we're going to see out I. Okay, and I is this I that we have declared there. So this I. Okay, we're going to see out I. And we're going to run the code. All right, so you see I is 0, and then I is 1, I is 2, I is 3. Yeah, that's because when I is 0, we check the condition. Is I less than 4? Yes, remember I is 0, so we get inside the loop and we print I is 0 at that point, right? So it's going to print 0. And then we go to increment. We say I equals to I plus 1, meaning 0 equals to 0 plus 1. And then after that we check the condition. Now because I is 1, is I is 1 less than 4? Well, yes. Then we run the code. What does the code say? Say we should print I is 1, so we're going to print I. This is the one that you see here. This is the one that you see here. And then we increment that's going to be 1 plus 1, which is going to be 2, and we check is 2 less than 4. Then yes, 2 is less than 4. We get inside the for loop, we run, the code says we should print I, and then I is 2, we're going to print 2, right? And then after that we go to increment, we increment. Now it was 2, so it's going to become 3, then we're going to increment 3, then we go inside the loop, right? We check the condition first after incrementing. Is 3 less than 4? Yes, it is. And then the code says we should print I. Let me check. There's something I need to. Okay, so what I did, I shared the board with you. So we're going to look at how the loop it works, and to understand that. Now we're going to write the code. So I'm going to write the code here, so you see as we talk about it. So then we have the code. Here we say cout. So the first code that we had was cout happy. Okay, cout happy. So this is the first code we had. We're going to try to trace it and see what's happening. Then that's going to be a line. So and then we close. So normally when I trace code, I usually throw a table like this, right? Then after throwing the table, I make some things like columns, right? I have something like this, and then like this. Then I look at my code. Okay, I look at my code. When I see, when we have something like this, there's an initial declaration and initialization. So here we are setting I to be 1. So I'm going to take this statement here and write it at the top of my table. So I'm going to take this statement, and I'm going to write it here. And then we have a condition, which is this one. Then I'm going to take this statement and write it here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to write it here. And then I know that from after checking the condition, we have to come to this part. So this statement here, cout happy. So I would open it and write it here. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to do is I plus plus. So I'm going to take that and write it there. Okay, so that's what I do. I look at where we have the variables, the conditions, I write them at the top of my table. So I'm going to do that now. I equals to 0. So this is how I usually trace my code. So I'll be having I equals to 0 there. Trying to move this down here. So I want to put it here in I equals to 0, and then the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to write the condition. I'm going to write I less than 4. So I'm going to have I less than 4, and I write it here. Hope that's visible enough from your side, and on your side I hope that's visible. Then we have I. Then the next thing is this statement here. So the statement here is saying you should cout happy. Okay, cout happy. Okay, that's fine. And then also last one that we're going to have is the increment, right? Increment, which is I plus plus, right? Now now I'm going to try to trace my code and understand what it's going to do. So first, now we said the first thing that we do is we said I equals to 0. So you know as I is going to be 0. Now then we're going to check the condition. Is I less than 4? Yes, this is true. So this is true, meaning the code is going to print happy. So the code is going to print happy here. Let me just write HPP, so you know that's happy. So this is statement, so it's going to print this statement up there for the first time, right? And then we're going to say I plus plus. So remember, 0 is I is 0, so we're going to have 0 plus 1 because we're saying I plus plus. So meaning we're increasing, we're adding 1 to I. So it's going to be 0 plus 1. So what's 0 plus 1? 0 plus 1 is 1. Meaning now the I here is no longer going to be 0. Now the I is going to be 1. And what I have here is one complete run. So this is one complete run of the loop. So this is the first complete run. And a complete run of the loop is called an iteration. So one iteration is one complete run of the loop. So it set I to be 0, which is this line here. And this line is run once in a for loop. This one is run once in a for loop. We initialize and set this to be 0. We declare and initialize I to be 0. We run this line once. From there, the lines that are going to be run number of times are this ones. You will see. So now I is equal to 1. Then we go again, we check is 1. So this is the order that the for loop follows. We check the condition. Is 1 less than 4? Yes, 1 is less than 4, right? 1 is less than 4. This is true. And when it's true, we know we have to print this statement. So we're going to print happy again. We're going to print happy. So we're going to print happy. And meaning we're going to print this statement here again, right? Then what do we do next? After doing that, we're going to increment I plus plus. And we know I currently is 1. So we're going to add 1 to I. So that's going to be I plus 1. And I plus 1 is 2, meaning now our I is 2. So if you look at this, this is also another complete run. So it's a complete iteration. So that's a complete iteration. So this is a complete iteration. One complete run of a loop is called an iteration. So now we check again, is 2 less than 4? Because I is 2. Is 2 less than 4? Yes, this is true. And when it's true, we know we're going to print the statement happy. Then we're going to print that statement there. And so we print the statement again. Now we increment. So I is 2. So what we're doing is just saying 2 plus 1, right? So 2 plus 1. And now our I is going to become 3. After an increment, you know that's when we have a complete run. So the first statement, the last thing we do in a for loop is increment. So after incrementing, you know it's a complete run. So after doing this is a complete run, we go to the next run. So in the next run, I is now 3. We check as 3 equal to is less than 4. All right, so we check, we're checking whether 3 is less than 4. Then yes, that's true. So as long as the condition is true, we go inside the for loop, we print happy. So we print that statement to statement again, and now we go to increment. So it's going to be 3 plus 4, right? We're going to have 3 plus 4, and 3 plus 1, right? So this is also a complete run. So this is a complete run, right? Now it's a complete iteration. Now I is 4. Okay, so when now I is 4, what are we going to do? We're going to check again. We're going to check the condition. Is 4 less than 4? No, this is false. So this is going to be false. And when it's false, we no longer go that way. So we just terminate the loop. We don't go anywhere, meaning we are not going to print happy. We are not going to increment. We are done. We get out of the for loop. So that's basically how a for loop works. If there are no questions, then we'll be going back to the code. All right. I'm going to show you the difference when do you use a for loop. So let's say you have a password, right? So you have a password and you set your password to be CTDE 2025, right? CTDE 2025. So that's a password. Now you're going to ask the user to enter password. So you're going to say cout going to say out, enter, okay, let me say string. I need to declare this variable, so string password, and then we initialize it to be that. So we're going to ask the user to enter password. So you ask them to enter password. I don't know if this is visible. I'm going to try to zoom the code. All right, so you say enter password, right? And then you want them to enter a password. So when they have entered a wrong password, so bc in pword. So when they have entered the wrong password, you want to say while pword is not, okay, this is not equal to, while pword is not equal to the one that you were expecting. Which one are we expecting? We're expecting CTDE 2025, right? Now when the password isn't what we're expecting, we want the code to say to them, we want to see out, we say wrong password, try again. Then after saying wrong password, try again, we're going to give them a chance to enter another password, right? So we're going to give them a chance to enter another password. So because we want to only get out of this loop when they have entered a correct password. So now we're going to see out, we give them a chance to enter password again. So we're going to write the statement again, and this one, and then say that, and then we say then we take in password, see in pword, right? That's going to be pword, right? Now this is a let me close this and write this bracket here. Okay, right now we're going to run this code, and we're going to run this code. So this one, when it's running, we're going to see output here. All right, so it's saying to me enter password. Let me enter something else different from that one that we expected. Let me add 57 54 82, wrong password, try again, enter password. So we are repeating that line of code, and since we don't know how many times this guy will be entering a wrong password, we need to use a while loop, because we don't know the number of iterations we're going to make. But if you use a for loop, you'll see what's going to be the problem. So, and then we enter that. So we keep on doing this until this guy finally enters CTDE 2025. Then after entering CTDE 2025, this program should, so now the program has ended because we don't have any other lines. Now let's say if the password is correct, then the next line is going to say, let's say it's a bank account. Now if you get the password right, let's say it's going to display your balance, right? So it's going to display your balance. It's going to say balance is equal to, and let's say you have this much money, and so this is what you have in your bank account, and it's a string, so I have to put it in. So let's say it's an ATM. This is an ATM application. You have written an ATM application, and now you have to enter a password in order to see your balance, right? Now we're going to run the code again. Okay. All right. So we have that. We say enter password. Okay. Now let's enter something wrong. 12. And then let's enter what is right. CTDE that's CTDE 2025, right? So it's showing us the balance. Now let's say we use a for loop. instead. Okay, if we use a for loop, let's say we're going to use a for loop. I don't even know how we're going to do that, because if, for example, if you write for, maybe we're going to say for I less than 4, that means the loop is only going to run 4 times. Meaning if this person is going to get it wrong 4 times, your for loop is going to terminate. And even if they enter the wrong password, after 4 times, it's just going to terminate and it's going to display the balance. So we use a while loop when we don't know the number of iterations. But when we do know the number of iterations, then we use a for loop. For example, when you know the number of iterations is when you know you're going to be taking marks for, let's say you're going to input marks for 20 students. So you know your for loop is going to run from 1 to 20. So you're going to take 20 students. So yeah, that's that. All right. I don't know if there are questions, and if there are no questions, I think we are good. So after we have covered the while loop, the do while, if, the switch, and the for loop, then the next thing that we're going to do arrays.